How's Africa and Nigeria preparing for this AI moment? Joining me for this conversation now, we have Samuel Ubido, who's the chairman, Tech Innovate Group. He joins me right here in the studio. It's great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Larry. Nice to meet you.
Fantastic. Welcome. So, yes, at this point, AI is becoming the center of most of the conversations so far. But how do we guard against Africa and Nigeria missing this AI moment?
That's quite a very interesting question. So what we see historically, some could argue Africa missed the industrial revolution moment. Now we're in the intelligent revolution moment. So I guess if you talk about AI, you have the computing layer. So you're talking the data centers. You have the apps or large language models, the OpenAIs and the Claudes, and you have applications, so AI-enabled applications. So what we've seen here in Africa is we are using AI, if that makes sense. So we're putting data into ChatGPT for presentation, for meeting minutes, etc., which we are using. But at the same time, do we know or do you use any African-based AI or large language model? Now, these are conversations we need to start thinking. Or how many data centers host OpenAI in Africa? Or how many data centers does Claude have in Africa? So ultimately, what Africa needs to do is not only should we be users of AI, we should think about start creating local large language models and also infrastructure that can support all things AI. Right.
So we don't end up, consuming, being
That's
that
correct.
Consumer of this incredible technology. All right. Right now, there's so much appetite for some of these IPOs, coming, especially the AI-related IPOs. I'm getting calls from, a couple of friends asking me, I want to get involved with some of these IPOs coming up. We have the OpenAI. Investors watching in 2026, we have OpenAI. They filed confidentially for a US IPO this month. Potential valuation, $1 trillion.
That's correct.
We have Anthropic there, the creator of Claude AI. That's coming too. They've also confidentially filed for an IPO. Funding looking at $965 billion. That's valuation approaching that.
Of course.
Then we have SpaceX with AI exposure through XAI. What is this telling us about where money is going?
So what we can see is, let's go back to historical context. So you can see the first set of billionaires, oil and gas, energy infrastructure. Then in the early 2000s, we saw the .com, so the Googles, the Microsoft, the Amazons. Now we're looking at the AI. So you talk about AI, most enterprises will become AI enabled. So how do you increase efficiency? How do you reduce cost? So what we're seeing is capital is going into AI at 3 levels. So we see a lot of investments going into cloud infrastructure. We see a lot of investment going into data centers. We see a lot of investment into going into AI companies. So, in those days they said, don't get a job. Now, if you get a job in an AI-based company and within 3-4 years they want to go public, you become an AI millionaire as an employee. So these are things that could be quite interesting. But I think ultimately, where I see the greatest opportunity is this. So investors are quite intelligent. A lot of apps, so people layering apps on top AI and large language model, they'll hype, they'll eventually fall off. But core critical softwares solving solutions using AI. So you're talking financial inclusion, advisory to farmers, or education, or even language learning. So these core components from a software level would grow. And then, of course, AI has power. How are you going to power this? So what it does is, not only does it create a tech ecosystem, but around it, there's an ecosystem around energy, around cooling, and around what sort of makes it grow. So I think it's going to be quite interesting times for the whole AI and investment ecosystem.
Yeah, we see the appetite for these IPOs growing.
Sure.
Right now. But these guys have not been able to tell us how they're going to make money.
Absolutely.
But they keep throwing money in there.
Yes.
How are you seeing that? Is that a risk for investors?
That's an interesting question. So if you look at, let's say, G42 in Abu Dhabi, they have quite a huge AI fund, and the UAE government have committed $1 billion into Africa from an AI investment point of view. I think ultimately the driver here would be productivity. So for example, if you own a data center, let's say, is similar to a filling station or bank, right? Filling station is you hold oil and you sell to customers. A bank, you hold money and then you loan at interest. Data center, the more AI apps that comes, you're going to need somewhere to host it locally. Now, we're hoping regulations make sure some of this data stays in Africa, which can enable the local ecosystem. And of course, I don't know, I'm a paid user of a few AI-enabled apps. Why, as a business owner, it gives me productivity. So a lot more people will start to pay to use these AI apps to ensure efficiency sort of things and go ahead. And I think a lot of government fund and subsidy might come just to increase digital ecosystem, because quite a few governments are increasing the digital presence and e-government. So I think AI would help in making things a lot more efficient.
Right.
So from a monetization point of view, I have a few AI apps which I pay for, which I didn't used to pay for, because I want more of it, because I'm getting value. And of course, the more users of AI, that means we need more data centers, we need more cloud computing, and also we need more skill sets. So definitely, skill sets in that ecosystem would be of great value coming in the future. So those are sort of the few points I'll sort of make on this.
All right, before I let you go now, definitely looking at African governments right now, what should they be doing, policy-wise, to make sure we don't stay behind?
Sure. I think that's a very interesting question, because I'm a firm believer in Africa. And Nigeria, of course. And if you look at most trends, Africa have seemed to, let's argue and say, missed out or not been leading. But I think what AI does now, I'll call it democratized knowledge. What that means for me is, for example, even if you don't have the hardware computer, as long as you have a phone that has a mobile app, you can get access to Claude.
Sorry, just hold that thought. One moment. We're about to join a live broadcast now. Renewed Hope Ambassador, that's happening at Transco Hotel, Abuja. That's for DSTV subscribers, but you can follow the money right here on other platforms. Sorry to interrupt you there. You can continue now.
Sure. So, of course, if you look at the whole ecosystem around apps, so normally, let's say as someone with not a lot of money, you don't have access to the best computing power ever, that limits you. But now, with AI, you can now have access to the best computing at a fair price, at a market entry price. So what that has done is make it a fair, equal ground. So from an economical point of view, you can apply for the best roles, etc., with the right computing power. As a government, I think the regulation needs to be strong, because what we don't want to do, I call it double taxation as a joke. What that means is we train a sovereign or a foreign-based AI solution without data, meaning, because the more you use an AI solution, you're training the large language model. So every day which we use any LLM-based system, large language model, we're training it. So let's imagine every day millions of Africans are training a large language model, which we don't own. Large language model is hosted overseas without data, and then we're now paying subscription for this. So can you imagine the context? So we are invested into AI solutions without data, without money. So I think definitely three things need to come into play. So around sort of hackathons and ecosystem enablers. So the government needs to create platforms whereby local AI solutions can come to breathe, if that makes sense, and can facilitate the ecosystem. Number two, talk about local content. So some of these AI companies coming into Africa, let them have some local ownership. So let them have a registered Nigerian presence, or let them have a registered African presence, African office, right? An African academy, an African ecosystem that ensures that they're pouring back into the economy and going back. And then, of course, from the last element is just around financing. So what financing is available to ensure that also goes through. So
money. We all need that money.
Absolutely, my friend.
For this investment. Thank you so much. Samuel Ubido, Chairman, Tech Innovate Group. Thank you for coming today.
Bye for now.